Second, everybody. It's another edition of the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Geoff Ketchum. I'm back. I've been gone for a couple of days. Anwar Richardson never goes anywhere. He is always around, ready to make a video. And we're back for the weekend, and we're talking about players with whose stock is going up. And we're talking about players whose stock is going down, even if it's just holding steady. So give us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that. We're trying to build a monster, and we need your help in doing so. So, Mr. Richardson,
yes,
how you feeling going into the weekend? We got scrimmage action going on.
Yeah,
there's preseason NFL football. Like, there's a lot to get excited about.
It's back. I mean, this is August. I mean, we are finally in that like crank up mode. Like you said, preseason football is going on. Interesting article. Eric Edholm from Yahoo with Sam Ehlinger competing for the top spot in Indianapolis. I mean, like, whoa, what is going? By the way, I don't know if it'll happen, but boy, the vindication. There's a part of me, I love chaos. I would love for Sam to get that job, or at least make the roster. We got fantasy football coming up. I'm still unprepared as ever for the fantasy football season. I'm just going to keep complaining about it and talk about how bad my team is going to be, hopefully for a reverse jinx. But we have Texas football. We've been getting access, probably more so than we've had in many years. And let's dive into it.
Yeah, and real quick on Ehlinger, I don't think he's going to win that job, but I think what he's doing right now may secure a job for him. Yes. For a decade, maybe. Like, yes. All of this buzz, I think, puts him into a position to make the team, which wasn't a slam dunk. I mean, he's a late round pick. They got a guy in Eason who they took with a higher pick, and they kind of want to win that job. So I don't think he's going to be opening game starter, because I think they'd sign Phillip Rivers or somebody like that before they put this season on the shoulders of a late round draft pick. But that's okay. He's accomplishing what he needs to accomplish. Attaboy, Sam. All right.
By the way, because he's getting the kind of run that he's getting, there's no way the Colts cut him and try to sneak him on a practice squad.
He won't make it through waivers.
No, he won't. See, right now, what he's been able to do is guaranteed, especially the hype, he's going to be on a 53-man roster. And you know what, Ketch? If you can be a McCown and just collect checks for years and years and years, or Garrett Gilbert, props to you, man. I mean, like, do it. Absolutely.
Securing your place in the league is the toughest thing for an NFL quarterback to do if they're not a first, second, third round draft pick.
Yes.
But once you're in, it's hard to get kicked out. Yes. Look at my man, Garrett Gilbert. Like, He's better now at like the age of 30 than he was when he came into the league. And it took practice squads and going and playing in a different football league, but eventually he's in, and now it feels like Garrett Gilbert's probably going to be in the league for a little bit longer. Like, he's the backup for America's team and taking first team reps, and he'll be one of those guys that when he loses his job and someone gets hurt, he'll get the call, and like that is not a terrible place to be in. Okay. Stock up, stock down. You can go. I'm giving you the table. You and I, we can't repeat any of the same selections. It's a little bit of a game. So I'm letting you have first draft pick. Stock up, stock down, go in any direction you want to.
Okay. I'm going to go to obvious direction. I'm going to get the obvious one out the way. Stock up, Hudson Card.
Okay.
And you might say, well, Hudson Card, what do you mean? Like, his stock has always been the same. I think you got to give Hudson credit for being able to compete against a guy who's been on campus for 4 years. Like, in theory, it shouldn't be a competition. In theory, Casey Thompson should have blown this thing away. In theory, back in the spring, right? But the fact that Hudson Card is hanging around, the fact that we're at the point where Sarkeesian saying, like, this is the hardest decision he's ever had to make in his entire career. That speaks to what Hudson is able to do. And I like Casey. I've been on record as a Casey Thompson, fan club president. I all due respect to Casey, and I think he's a guy that maybe ends up winning the job. And I'm coming down from emphatically to maybe, right? But I just catch to be able to compete against a guy when you're only on campus for your year 2 and you're in a new system. So that means like all things were equal for both of you guys, and all things being equal for him to be in a competition, I think that's stock up.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go with Hudson Card. I thought for sure you were going to take my guy because my first stock up is Xavier Worthy. Mm-hmm. And it's not a matter of him just making plays. I think what's happened this week that's incredibly important is they've started, and Alex touched on this in the practice notes yesterday on orangebloods.com. And if you go back to the interview that I did with Xavier on this YouTube channel, if you haven't watched the video yet, go back a couple of days in our video archives. It's there. It's really good. And he talks about playing inside and outside. And when camp starts and he's the backup behind Jordan Whittington, you wondered, oh, is this going to marginalize him a little bit? If Jordan Whittington is the number one receiver on this team, what does it mean if you're the backup to that guy? No matter how talented you are, that they're a week into camp and they're moving Xavier Worthy around, I think gives you an indication, everybody an indication, that this is a guy that is going to be more than a one-trick pony. He's not going to be marginalized to a one little sub position. I think Xavier Worthy is going to start the opener. I think he's going to start it on the outside, and that we're a week into camp and he's putting his name in the same breath as every outside receiver they have. I think it is a testament to how important he's going to be in this offense. And it would have been real easy to, I think, go the first week and a half of camp and just try to get his feet wet, let him run behind Whittington. They're trying to get those two guys on the field together. And it's Worthy that's gotten moved to the outside and not Whittington, which just speaks to a really dynamic and complete skill set, especially for a kid that weighs like $160. I mean, they're moving him all over the field, and he has no fear, and that's why he gets I generally have bought all the Xavier Worthy stock I can get my hands on, and yet I think in the last week it's gone up even more with this kind of acknowledgement that they're moving him all over the field.
All right, I got another stock up guy for you.
Okay,
this one's going to kind of come out the blue. How about Luke Brockermeyer?
Yeah.
I mean, we got to give that guy some love. I mean, that's not a guy when we started talking about the linebacker position this offseason he wasn't on my radar. And I know you didn't discuss him, but it seems like he's.
I'm not going to fake it. I'm not. I know. I'd have signed him to an NIL deal if I knew he was going to be.
I know, but he's a guy that's not coming off the field at this moment. I mean, he's a guy that Sarkeesian talks about it and praises as far as what he's able to do from a work ethic standpoint, from an activity standpoint. That Luke Brockermeyer's stock, when you talk about stock who's way up as far as like where it started to where it is now. I mean, Brockermeyer is a guy that is high on that list.
I've got one. This feels like low-lying fruit, but stock, and I know I'm picking guys that we have on our Orange Bloods team on the YouTube channel, but DeMarvion Overshown's been a guy that this week Sarkeesian had. You talk about linebackers that aren't coming off the field. I think Sarkeesian in the last week has realized really what he has with Overshown, because DeMarvion's a guy that missed the spring. So as this team is getting put together, he didn't get those first 15 workouts, and he didn't get the spring game, and he didn't get film inside of Pete Kwiatkowski's defense for them to review and get a feel for. And it's hard not to notice that all week long, it feels like Sarkeesian every day has a little bit of love that he's given to DeMarvion Overshown for a lot of different baby reasons. Like, he hasn't just come out and said, oh my God, he's the best player on this deep. But it's like every day he's been learning something about DeMarvion as a player. And I had a little bit of concern about, look, we signed DeMarvion to an NIL deal, right? So we had high expectations for him coming into camp, but I was a little concerned about the labrum injury, which caused him to miss the spring. Would there be any side effects from that? Would would he fall behind because he doesn't know the defense as well, maybe as some other guys? Hasn't been the case at all. And I think the combination of Luke Brockermeyer and DeMarvion Overshown, two guys we both pick as this stock up kind of thing, I don't see either one of those guys coming off the field right now. I don't know who's taking them off the field, regardless of down and distance, based on the way they've been used so far. You get the sense that those two guys are going to look. DeMarvion, I think everybody somewhat expects, but for him to kind of cement that, and Brockermeyer as well, I think leads credence to why we've selected them both in our stock ups.
Yes. All right, I got one more.
Okay.
I'm surprised this guy lasted on the board as long as he did. Ja'Tavion Sanders.
Yeah.
That guy's stock is, I mean, like you and I were huge fans of him back in high school. I think, and probably you so more than me because I didn't really do it, guys don't get on my radar until they're getting close to being, coming to UT. Like you have to do your LSR, right? So
I fall in love with guys that I'm never going to get to watch play in person.
Like of all the guys that you on your LSR, like only 3 of them you ever get to watch play, right? And no one else, right? So, but the Tavens come in as a tight end, and I really thought to catch, and I still kind of think. I think the long money for Ja'Tavion is on the defensive side of the ball. It's okay to play the tight end thing, but when you start thinking about, hey, NFL, like, do you really want to do the damn thing? You probably want to be on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's just I think for him, that's just my thought. Like, he may go out and be a hellified tight end, and what the hell do I know? But Ja'Tavion has come in. He looks the part, catch. He's got soft hands. They spend time coaching him up individually for the portions of practice that we're able to watch. I watched Jeff Banks with him, really teaching him the intricacies of the game to make sure this guy gets it. And I'm not saying they don't do it a little bit, but you can tell when they're spending a little bit more time with another guy because he looks the part. He is the part. Like, he is a freaking stud. And I don't know if his breakout year is this year, and this might be a learning year and a special teams year, but two years from now, or at the most, catch, we'll be hearing a lot about him. So Ja'Tavion Sanders, he's a stock up guy for me.
Look, it feels like at some point there's going to be a moment this season, probably a lot of them, maybe, where you got Bijan Robinson in the backfield. You've got Ja'Tavion Sanders at tight end. You've got Jordan Whittington, Troy O'Meary, Xavier Worthy on the field at wide receiver. That's a lot of firepower, actually. Like, O'Meary's about getting him on the field healthy. Whittington is about staying on the field healthy. Worthy's a freshman. Sanders is a freshman. Bijan's a sophomore. But the talent, you put those guys on the field as your personnel, along with your quarterback and your 5 offensive linemen, and somebody's getting a matchup that the offense should be able to take advantage of. There are a lot of guys on the field at that point that you need to account for. And it's exciting to think about. There will be a time. It's only a matter of when that, I think, personnel grouping can start doing some things on the field together. Mm-hmm. And, if you're talking about why should Texas fans be excited about this season, because at some point, it may not happen in game 1 or game 2. There's going to be a point, though, in this season when the coaches feel comfortable and feel like those are their best players. I want to see that offense. And I think Casey Thompson or Hudson Card, whoever the hell's playing quarterback, they should be able to do damage with that group. I don't know that the wide receiver unit goes super deep, which is problematic because if they have injuries or whatever, suddenly it thins out a little bit. But yeah, I'm with you on Sanders. Real quick, one more stock up before we go into the stock downs.
Okay.
Feels like we had to say Byron Murphy. This is a guy that literally every player we're talking to, he's either paying guys. Like, he's slipping a 20 to Jake Majors and he's slipping a 20 to DeMarvion, and he's hoping that those guys will call his name out and the coaches will see the video and it'll somehow help his stock, or he's really been doing well with limited opportunities, and he's opening up eyes on the offensive side of the ball against guys that are blocking him, and on the defensive side of the ball with guys who are watching him and playing behind him. I did not expect to say his name in August. That we are is a massive stock up. He is a bit of an undersized guy, that he's showing some early Puna Ford-like tendencies as an undersized guy is a really exciting prospect for the Longhorns. Okay, it is the Texas Longhorn Football Channel, the Orange Bloods Texas Longhorn Football Channel. As I reset here and remind everybody, if you haven't done it yet, click the like button, subscribe to the channel. We're going to the always controversial stock down. Everybody will get mad at us for potentially doing that. But
no win in this one.
There isn't. But I mean, it's our job to do coverage of the team. Is there anybody right off the bat for you on a stock down that comes to mind?
Stock down probably start with Darian Dunn. I mean, that's a guy that when he signed Ketch, he was supposed to have NFL upside. Like that was the expectation, that he's coming to Texas just to do like 1 year, increase his NFL stock, and then he's out. And Dunn has just not been a guy that's been talked about. Like he's kind of been lost in the shuffle on the DB chart. And so he's a guy that, now you just don't know what to expect. Does he contribute on special teams? Does he have to wait for an injury? But he's a guy that was signed previously to be a starter on this defense. And the fact that he's not, and the fact that we don't see much about him, his stock is down.
Yeah. It's interesting because when Herman recruited him, they had Deshaun Jameson. They were deep at corner. That was before Jalen Green transfers. Mm-hmm. You've got Josh Thompson, who we know every coach. I mean, they've had like 19 defensive coordinators in the last 19 years. And I think Josh Thompson's had 9 of them. But every coach that's ever had Josh Thompson raves about him. And so when they brought Darian Dunn in, I thought, well, this dude must be a baller because he's coming here to supplant one of these, every guy not named Deshaun Jameson in my mind. And that it hasn't happened. Yeah, I mean, I hate to cast doubt, and there's a little bit of a wonder, though, if he should have chose differently. I hate to say it like that, but for a guy, like you said, who's in his final season and was hoping to use this platform to elevate draft stock, it's not what's happening right now. My stock down, I'll go with Ben Davis, the Alabama transfer. Not really because he's playing poorly, but I think these August camp reps are really important. And he's a guy that's had to come out of the gate a little bit slow. And you wonder, I wonder what his presence on this defense is going into the season. I don't really know. I wondered, would he be able to overtake Ray Thornton? Should probably be in the stock up because that guy hasn't lost his job yet. But at this point, Davis, I think a lot of people thought would be competing for a starting spot. And I don't know that that's happening yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's starting to look like a guy that's it's special teams, and again, one of the things we talk about, Ketch, is when these guys come in and they've only got a year of eligibility left, they're going usually somewhere so they feel like they can start.
Yeah,
like they're not, because he could be a backup in Alabama, for another year, or he could go into a smaller program and absolutely start it and increase your draft prospects. So I'm sure for him being a guy that's not in the mix for starting, I'm sure that's definitely disappointing. So I would put him on the list. Here's the one. This one feels bad because it's tough because I think overall he's probably a really nice young man, and I've met his parents. I think they're really great individuals. But if we got to keep it real, BJ Foster. And this is a guy that in his 4th year, Ketch, I think there was a time, Ketch, early on where we thought BJ was for sure an NFL draft pick. At least I felt that.
Yeah.
I felt like if he stayed healthy, he's a guy that can have the impact to be an NFL draft pick at some point. I'm not saying he won't get signed at some point, but the fact that he's behind on the depth chart, the fact that a guy like Jaron Thompson has surpassed him. The fact that he's probably going to have to come off the bench in coming into year 4. Yeah, and then again, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but that would be a stock down for me.
I'll give you another one. Alex touched on this yesterday in his practice notes. Ryan Bushevsky. I mean, you and I are super high on Cameron Dicker, but Bushevsky was the starting punter for most of last season until he gets injured. I'm not at practice, so I have not been watching the practice reports. So I say this with a bit of a caveat that I'll have to trust Alex and Jason, and I suppose by extension you, if you co-sign on this. But for him to be, in Alex's words, like struggling and even behind the true freshman Isaac Pearson in terms of consistency and what you're getting out of the punt game, a little surprising, because I would have thought that they could put Cameron Dicker at place kicker and kickoffs and all the things that he does. Ideally, you'd like to split those duties up. That Bushevsky hasn't come back and reclaimed his job and just said, I got this. And Cameron, you just go make field goals. And like, it's all good. That after a week of practice and the first day of full practice, Alex led off with a punter take yesterday was unusual. And I think puts Bushevsky in line to be in the stock down. Okay, we each get one more stock down. We hate doing this because it feels like a call out. So even if it's a stock even if a guy's just plateaued, I think that somewhat makes him a candidate in August. No games have been played, and they just started practice yesterday. So the stock down stuff, you and I are both being very careful on. Is there one more guy that comes to mind?
There's only one guy that comes to mind, and it may be fair, but just because the stock was never super high. But Tyler Owens is I mean, I loved this guy coming out of high school, Catch. I just absolutely loved his film. I loved his speed. Like I followed him in track, Catch. I mean, I thought with his build, his speed, I just thought this was a guarantee. He looks like more of a guy who's going to contribute on special teams than he will be in the rotation. And it's a little bit disappointing for me. And I don't know, I got to find out, what's going on there and what's maybe not clicking, but that's probably the only one. It's like a little disappointment. And hopefully if he sees it, the young man sees it, like he knows no disrespect. It's just like, I just thought so highly of him coming out of high school that here we are a couple of years later. He's not in the mix. That's the part I would probably say stock down.
I'll give you one more. And this is just injury related, but Braden Liebrock is a guy that I like a lot. And I watched him last season, and it was like very quietly, when he's healthy, he plays. And he's still a young player. I think last year, his redshirt freshman year. And so he's still a really young guy. He has not been able, he's just been limited. Alex mentioned yesterday, he's in a sling. And when you look at the tight end position and the depth that exists there, even before you added Jatavian Sanders to the mix, I think when he gets back, he's just playing catch up behind a group that's already ultra competitive. And it's going to probably require a year of patience for him. If he's missing most of August, players don't want to hear that when it's them, but that's a big deal. And it gets, you get into the season and it's about game planning and it's about preparing. It's not about at that point trying to find guys who are going to come in and play. So it's why you really have to do a lot of your work in August. And I love the guy. Like if I was talking to him, I would say, hey man, don't panic. You still have a lot of eligibility left, but he's an out-of-state guy, and out-of-state players that don't play a lot oftentimes are guys that I need to go find a fresh opportunity. And I just hope he really hangs in there, because this is a guy with NFL talent. He's just in a very crowded room, and he got the short end of the stick so far this year with being the guy in that position group that's banged up and not able to play. But if I was his parents or someone just advising him, I would be like, hold the rope. You're okay. You're still a really young guy. and injuries happen, but you're good. And I don't think this is like an indictment of his talent as much as it's an indictment of his circumstances right now. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys we've given a stock up to is a guy at his position. And that doesn't include Jared Wiley, and that doesn't include Cade Brewer. And, they're just deep there. And he may be a guy that has to bide a little bit of time this year as he just works to get healthy. But every time I've looked at practice updates and noticed he's a guy that's not on the field right now, I remind myself like, oh, that's a bad one. And because I don't necessarily do that, I'll just wrap it up. You look at the other guys that were banged up yesterday, Kelvonte Dixon, I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that were out there that didn't practice. I think Joshua Moore was limited yesterday.
Yeah.
You start looking at some of the guys that didn't practice, and it's
John
like, well,
Harrison was limited as well.
Exactly. So I think the full list, I'm looking at it. So you had Joshua Moore, Isaiah Hookfin, Librock, Kelvonte Dixon, Jarrett Smith, Jordan Thomas. Hookfin is the backup right tackle. Joshua Moore is a guy that's banged up, but he's going to play. Librock for me, I guess someone could make a case with Kelvonte Dixon, but Librock for me is the guy in the injury group right now that I think can play and play a lot, that I'm a little bit worried about. The fact that he's in a shoulder sling, I don't know what that means. I've seen guys come out of walking boots like the next day and play.
Yeah.
Shoulder slings, like when someone says, oh, someone was in a boot, that never bothers me. They put everybody in boots.
Yes.
Everybody. You hurt your foot, you're in a boot, damn it. But shoulder slings are different. And that Librock's in a shoulder sling, that doesn't feel like, oh, he'll be back by the next scrimmage. You know what I mean? So that's why he makes my list. Braden, if you're watching this, don't panic. I put you on the list mainly because I think a lot of you. Okay.
All right. Before you go, Ketch, you go. I want to throw one last one at you.
Okay.
We've done stock up and stock down for the players. What about Sarkeesian? Where would you put his stock? Is it up or is it down?
For me, it's steady.
Okay.
I mean, his stock for me can't go up in August, but it can sure as hell go up in September, starting in the first game. And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch the first game through the prism of, okay, Sark, let's see what you got. I mean, we've seen you with Alabama. So we know if we give you Rolls Royce toys that you can do amazing things. He's got a Rolls Royce in Bijan, and it feels like maybe he's got some potential Rolls Royces, but maybe he's also got some other types of cars. And we're going to have to figure out what that offense looks like with, I don't know that he has a first round pick at quarterback right now. And I don't know that he's got first round picks at multiple receivers and first round, he's got a first round pick at running back, but he had Najee Harris last year. So he's used to even having those as well. I'm really curious to see what the game planning and the scheming looks like with Texas, because it's the one area that if he's an improvement over Tom Herman in that area and the offensive coaching staff that Texas would have had a year ago, just in general, then this team does have a chance to be better by sheer force of better coaching. But that always feels like the thing that we've been hearing every year since you've been here. So when it happens, I think you and I will fully acknowledge it. It's just hard to get carried away with it because I don't want to be that guy that's constantly putting fool's gold into his pocket and claiming that he's rich.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm with you on it's probably just about even, because the things I'll give him credit for is that, seemingly the camp is going well. We haven't heard about players, revolting and wanting to burn down the place like we've heard in previous years. So there's something to be said for the way he's communicating with guys and winning over the guys and winning over the locker room. And again, how that translates, we will see. But the other part is the recruiting aspect, right? And recruiting is not going as well as you thought it would go. I thought it would go. He's not getting that first year bump at this moment. So that's why it's all even for me. Can I
ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
The recruiting and the players buying in are both things that have to happen. But you and I, look, the players have bought in. They like Sark. They like the staff. They like the way that he runs things. Mm-hmm. I think the players seem to be emoting that they feel more respected and that he treats them maybe a little bit more like pros and that there's an expectation you do your job. Mm-hmm. When you're on the clock, there's no funny business, but he's not a guy that's making them eat runny eggs and doing all of that stuff. So if you could only pick one in year one, immense buy-in from the guys that you have on campus versus a top 5 recruiting class in year one. Because you're not historically a recruiting guy. If in year one you could only have one of those things, are you taking the top 5 recruiting class for the future, or are you taking absolute buy-in from the team that really impacts, I think, the product on the field in year one with that amount of buy-in?
I think I take the buy-in from the team. And the reason why is because Tom Herman had top 5 recruiting classes. And I don't think it really mattered until the players believed in him. I don't think it mattered until Tom actually changed some of his approach. We remember the Tom Herman that was a hard ass in year one. But by year 3 and 4, Tom changed.
Yeah.
Tom literally let a guy quit during the middle of the game and come back the next day. Tom really changed his approach. Tom realized he needed to be more likable. He realized that, hey, you know what? It might be good to have a buy-in here, and this other stuff isn't working. So I've seen Texas get a top 5 recruiting class and then not yield anything. But even last year's a good example, Ketch, of I think that there was a program that bought in, and that's how you come back versus a Texas Tech. That's how you come back versus an Oklahoma State. That's how you're able to, win. Dropped nearly 60 and 70 in your last 2 games. There was more of a buy-in last year than there had been in previous years for a lot of various reasons. I would take the buy-in and believing in the coach and the program and giving it your all over, the top 5. That's what I would take.
What do you think I'm going to say?
I think you're still going to go top 5.
I'm not. I'm going to agree with you. I think you're exactly right. I think that it's been a long time, I think, since, think about Herman, and then we'll wrap this up. I know you and I do this thing where we just can't help ourselves. Yeah. But to be fair, we haven't been together on camera in a few days, so we got lots of stuff to say. I think Tom struggled with his roles, and I think that one week he's walking with his players to the Capitol, and I think the next week he doesn't know what to do with his players when they're putting out letters about the eyes of Texas. And that's not necessarily Tom's fault. I'm not criticizing Tom as much as I'm pointing out he struggled at times with the right amount of touch. Right? There's a fine touch that comes with your guys believing in you on the field, off the field. They trust you. And it felt like Tom, because of the approach he took early, was always chasing that a little bit. Sarkeesian has come in year one, and maybe it's just lucky for him. Maybe he's got a little bit of fine touch. I don't know what it is, but he hasn't alienated his player base the way that previous coaching staffs did. And he's got them buying in to the point where I don't ask players usually. I don't ask the question like, hey, man, what do you think about Sark? Is he okay? You know what I mean? I don't go around asking that question. But when I talk to players, they bring it up themselves. And they say, I really dig the vibe on this team. And I like the coaches and I like the way things are going. And when that stuff gets brought up and you and I aren't digging around and trying to write a story and war room notes on asking 10 guys like, hey, what's the vibe? Trying to get a consensus. Very organically, I feel like the buy-in has happened. And I think it may end up being the key to Sarkeesian working out at Texas just in general. I don't know that a 5 top 5 class saves, the era of Sarkeesian, his players buying in to everything he sells feels way more important than a recruiting class that we've seen top 5 classes fall apart for a variety of reasons. Those kids buy in, and the byproduct is better football over the course of 12 games. The recruiting will fall into place, even if it's not a top 5 class this year. Look, thank you for watching. If you got this far, thank you, because the analytics say most of you don't watch the entire videos. We love the ones that do. We know that Anwar and I will say a lot of words. Thanks for watching. One more time, like us, subscribe to us, and we'll see you either tomorrow or like in 2 days with a full scrimmage report. Maybe that's the time to talk about stock up and stock down. But for myself and Anwar, Richardson, and everyone at orangebloods.com, you guys take care of each other this weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Later.